So instead of viewing yourself as an entrepreneur just trying to make a sale, if you viewed yourself through the act, like this is an act of love. I'm doing this because I love a particular audience. So I want to create something that would make the people in that audience have better, more wonderful, more happier lives. And the people on my team and on my staff, like, I just want people to really understand what I'm saying. I could teach you how to be a parent, but I can't teach you how to be a parent at 2 a.m. on the 52nd night waking up. That comes from a different place. And I've had to do things in my entrepreneurial journey that would not have been capable without love for the entrepreneurial journey. And I think people have to love the whole thing. You gotta love like the whole entire thing. I teach people all the time, the greatest thing that you can have in your life is appreciation, and you gotta be appreciative for it all. And there are times like when your child is now 22, you're gonna miss those nights of waking up and holding them in a weird, like, because you romanticize them in your brain. At the time you didn't miss them, but like when they're 20, you look at them like, I miss when I was nursing them and I was the hero in their life and I was all that mattered. Imagine if you could develop the skill to appreciate it in real time. Like if you could develop the skill to appreciate it now, and that comes from your mindset of accepting this is just part of the journey. The entrepreneurial journey is hard, but that's what makes it beautiful. That's what makes it amazing. And you cannot do it without understanding it's an act of love.
Hello, Launch family. So happy to have you listening to today's episode. Our topic today is kind of bouncing around, but it's going to be around growth, mindset, and really about getting the most out of what we've got. And it's going to be a really fun episode. We have two amazing people. As usual, I am joined by my co-host and a master of his own mindset, Mr. Jeff Walker.
Hey, everyone.
And we are also joined by Mr. Elliott Connie, who is an author, podcaster, psychotherapist, and all-around awesome guy. Welcome to the show, Elliott.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Today, I think it would be a really good place to start would actually be, Elliott, if you could tell us a little bit about, what is your background and like a little bit more about your story, and also like you're an author and your book is specifically around solution-based therapy, I believe is the way you refer to it. Could you give us a little brief on what it is and who you are and where that and what that means for people?
Yeah, of course. It's when people ask me like, what's my background? I don't know where to always like pick up the story. So I'm going to pick it up at the beginning and just let you guys tell me to shut up if you want me to shut up. But I can't talk about my background without talking about my origin and living in a home that wasn't always safe. I honestly think that that's probably the defining thing in my life because it oriented everything I did subsequent to that. So growing up in an environment that was so full of angst and pain and trauma, I knew the importance of joy and happiness. I knew that was like a rare commodity, right? I knew that like joy and happiness was a thing that you had to find, and when you found it, you had to hold on to it. And through certain things that went on in my life, I somehow did land in a place where I found myself joyous and happy in spite of all of these things that happened while I was growing up. And I was 19 when it happened. And I decided at 19, like, I want to help other people find this gem, find this rare diamond of joy, happiness, and just love and life. And the best thing I could think to do that was to become a psychotherapist. But the horrible thing that happened was while I was in my training program, I learned that psychotherapy was not for me. And I don't know, if anybody out there listening or if you guys have any experience with psychotherapy, either by the receiving or to getting trained in it. In school, you study things that I experienced as toxic. Like you study things like diagnosis, symptomology. You basically study the problem. And I had spent a lot of my life trying to shift my brain and my mindset on my assets. The way that I think, like if we all have problems, what's the point of focusing on them? If we focus on our assets and our skill sets, what makes us great, and then we lean into our greatness, then you're much more likely to have a great life. And now I'm going to go to graduate school, and they're teaching me to focus on problems and flaws and symptoms. But I mean, I just didn't think that was the way to live life. So I thought, I'm going to leave grad school because this is not for me. I don't want to do this. And then I read a book, and in this book was literally 2 pages. It was a textbook where they just explain multiple different therapies. And in chapter 13 of this book, I'll never forget it. Chapter 13 was about 4 different therapies, and one of them was called solution-focused brief therapy. I had never heard of that before. And it was describing the type of therapist I wanted to be. Those 2 pages completely changed my life because I was like, oh, that therapy is about helping people discover their greatness and then living their life more towards their greatness, as opposed to helping them discover the origin of their depression, anxiety, addiction, whatever. And I just went all in. Like, I was like, I just want to be this. And I know, like, every therapist would say this, but I genuinely wanted to help people. And I know that sounds hokey, but to me, I wanted everybody to live a life of joy. Like, I wanted everybody to live a life of happiness. I wanted everybody to live life as if it's the true, genuine gift that it was. And I didn't think people were doing it. I still don't, to be very honest. And I thought, if I could do my little part, of therapy to help people do that, then I would be, I would be satisfied with my time here on earth. But I learned when I opened my therapy practice, I was terribly unsatisfied. Because what happened was, like, I opened my therapy practice and I just wanted to make a difference in this world. And I realized I'm making one hell of a difference to people who can drive to my physical office, right? This is before Zoom and all that stuff. Like, in order to get therapy from Elliott Connie, you had to go to Keller, Texas to get it. And I was proud of the impact I was having on that community, but it felt like the world is so much bigger than Keller, Texas, and I wanted to impact the world. So I started writing books because I thought I could use books to get outside of Keller, Texas. And then I felt that kind of unsatisfying because the only people who I was touching at that point were reading my books. So then I started going to conferences and lecturing, and I felt that unsatisfying because the only people who I was touching were people who were coming to my lectures. And then I started thinking about using the online space to reach more people because I thought of online as unlimited. I could reach anybody who has Wi-Fi. And at each one of those iterations, I had to turn myself into a different person that I wasn't before. That's why mindset is so important. Like, I had never written a book, and I literally decided to write a book. I told myself, you can write a book. Never done it before. I knew nobody who had done it. But if other people had done it, why couldn't I? And the same thing happened. Like, I'm going to go give lectures. Never done it before. But if other people could do it, I had to turn myself into a different version of me at each one of those iterations. And it's been such a ride. Like, I can't even describe it. Like, I'm so filled with gratitude and love, and I hope that the books I write and the things I do have touched people and helped them become the better version of them. So, like, that's literally my story. Like, I would love to tell you, like, I always dreamt of having a business. I always dreamt of having a big brand. I always dreamt of, but for me, it was none of that. It was just, I just want people to know that you are stronger than your problems. And if Elliott could do cool things after going through what I went through, that I could do it too. That's it for me. Like, that's literally all that matters to me.
Wow, thank you for giving us that context right off the bat. What I'm really curious about, like, where mindset clearly has had a huge impact on your story and your life all the way through, because people who maybe have had similar upbringings or similar challenges in their childhood up through teens, they haven't necessarily wound up where you are, right? And what I'm hearing, at least in your story, is that your reaction to what has been happening to you, or what has happened to you, has made a huge difference in the trajectory of where you've gone. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit towards that about where people might be starting their journeys and how important is that consistent shifting of mindset, or how did mindset play a role there?
Yeah, I think mindset is everything. So I'll tell a quick story to explain this. One of the biggest comedians in the world is a guy named Dave Chappelle. And Dave Chappelle, he told this story of how, like, when he started out as a comedian, his biggest fear in life was bombing. He was like, I didn't want to take the stage and get booed and people like throw stuff at me and all of it. And he said, and one night I was doing a comedy show in DC and I bombed. I think he was 16 when it happened, but I bombed. Like it was awful. And he said, I remember being backstage and looking at myself thinking, so the thing I feared most in life has happened and I'm okay. Like I'm still alive. I'm a whole human. And all I have to do right now is decide to get back up on the stage. I just have to decide to get back up on the stage. And I think about that in terms of just life, because like my mindset is I am unbreakable. And I don't say that from like an arrogant place, like I can do anything, because clearly I have limitations on what is possible. But I do feel like I can get back up if I simply decide to get back up. Like I can literally just tell myself I can get back up. And that makes a human being unbreakable. And if you think about the things you do when you believe you are unbreakable, it changes everything. Like it changes everything, because you just have to literally just decide, I'm just gonna get back up and do it again. But every time you do it again, you do it with knowledge you didn't have the previous time. So you can't help but grow if you simply decide, I'm just going to get back up. And I think that mentality is so important, because what we know is life is going to knock you down. Like it's just going to do it. Like Jeff loves to ski. I've never skied in my life. And if Jeff said, Ellie, come join me skiing, he would have to let me know I'm going to fall. That is just the reality of the activity of skiing. At some point, I'm going to fall in a big, cold, wet snow pile. And I have to just decide I'm going to get up and keep skiing. And when you make that decision, you become literally unstoppable. You can literally learn anything. You can't help but grow, because every time I fall, I get up with previous knowledge I didn't have. I get up with a little bit more information that makes me better at whatever activity, in this case, skiing. And I think life is that way. Like somehow we have built in our brains that life is supposed to be great and smooth. But that's not true. That's not true. The longer you live, the more punches you're going to have to take. So what if you just told yourself, every time I get knocked down, I'm just going to stand back up. I'm literally just going to get back up. Every time I ask somebody on a date and they say, no, I'm just going to do it again. Or every time I try to cook that meal and I burn it, I'm just going to do it again. Or every time I try to accomplish some task, I'm just going to do it again. Or every time in Jeff's world, the biggest mistake I see people making in Jeff's world is they don't want to launch until things are ideal. And it ends up causing a bit of psychosis. But you should be so excited about making mistakes, because that means you're going to fall and you get back up with knowledge you didn't have. Like I do massive launches now, and I have major celebrities that are paying attention to what I do, that are paying attention to, like, they want to be involved in what I'm doing. They want to share what I'm doing. They want to literally sign contracts to produce what I'm doing. But my first like launch was like 3 sales. And imagine if I was like, oh, I just fell and it hurt so bad, I'm never going to do this again, then I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in now. And I think people need to just accept you're going to fall. But that's part of the beauty of it. Like you're going to struggle. You just have to decide to get back up and do the activity again. And then that first launch that was like 3 sales, the next time you do it, there's like 9. And then when you get back up again, then there's like 22. And before you know it, I'm getting phone calls from people that I'm like, why are you calling me? And it's because they saw my content, right? If you just decide, I'm just not going to stop, you literally can't fail. You eventually get to wherever it is you're going. And I think that's the mindset that people have to have. Like once I decide I'm going to do something, I'm just not going to stop. Like that's it. I'm just not going to stop. And that means I'm going to get up every time I fall. That means I'm going to have a mindset of abundance and share what I'm learning, but I'm just not going to stop. And eventually you get there. So I think that's the mentality that people have to adopt. And unfortunately, I think people are like, I want to have everything. Sometimes I talk to people and they're like, I'm working on a launch. And I'm like, oh, cool. When are you going to launch? And they're like, next August. And I'm like, next August? Like, you can't make life perfect like that. You should launch tomorrow so you can break everything and then like retool it. Between now and next August, I will probably launch 50 times. I will literally probably open 50 carts between now and next August. And I'm going to learn something all the time. So I'm going to be 50 times more educated between now and next August. And to me, that's just a mindset thing. That's literally a choice.
Elliott, what you're speaking to is it's something I've been on for like the last 8 months is exactly what you're speaking to is just reps, getting in repetitions. It's like, you actually here's a bit of a tangent. You talked about skiing and something I'm passionate about, something I've gotten fairly good at. Another thing I really, really enjoyed was surfing. Just done a little bit of that and was not very successful at all. Because it's really hard. I think the biomechanics, the athletic piece of surfing is no harder than skiing, from what I can tell. But when you're surfing, you have to sit out there. You might sit out there waiting for a wave for like 90 minutes and get 1 or 2 shots. So you get 1 or 2 reps. But skiing, you take that lift up, you are automatically going to get reps because you're going down to the bottom. It's easier to get reps, in my opinion. I could be completely off on this, but in skiing than in surfing. So even though I think they're similar capabilities, skiing's so much easier to learn, in my opinion, because it's hard to get the reps in surfing. So I know for you in our world, in my world, you have launched a bunch. You've put together all kinds of offers. You've gotten very, very good at it. But I also know you have quite a background in athletics.
Yeah.
So is that like, where was your first success? Where did you first start to understand this idea of that failing is just the step on the way to success, and it gives you more information you can learn from it?
So I read a book when I was in high school. I'm a ferocious reader. In fact, I would say I'm a ferocious consumer of information. I'm very observant. I read a lot. I watch a lot of things. Like it's just my personality, and has always been my personality. And there was a coach of the UCLA basketball team, the UCLA Bruins. And now I'm trying to think, what's his name? I can't remember his name.
John Wooden.
John Wooden, yes.
Sure.
And Wooden wrote a book about what he called the pyramid of success. And in that book, I remember 2 things to this day that stood out to me. In that book, the first thing he said was, the only variable on the path to success that you have complete and total control over is work ethic. And I experienced that as really good news, because that meant I could outwork my competition from an athletic standpoint. That meant if I outworked my competition, then I'm in a better situation and capable of winning. The other thing he said, so John Wooden won 10 national championships, which is the pinnacle of college basketball, in 12 years. But he said, it took me 17 years to win the first one. And he said, I'm a slow learner, but once I get it, I've got it. And I remember thinking, like, I don't know, 13 years old, 14 years old, whatever age I was reading that book, I remember thinking, mastery can take time. So for me, the first bit of success for me was realizing, A, I can outwork people, and B, mastery takes time. And that gives me permission to just put in the work and put in the effort without the expectation that I'm supposed to get anything quickly. Because if the greatest basketball coach of all time described himself as a slow learner, but once I get it, I got it, then it made me realize that mastery takes time. So anything that I'm going to do, like in Jeff's case, surfing, if I just start doing that tomorrow, I'm not going to be a master of it, which means I have to accept failure. And go back to mindset, falling and failing is actually totally irrelevant. Because if I can shift my mindset to focus on the clues that I was getting better, then that matters. Then that's actually more important. So for example, if Jeff says, Elliott, let's go skiing, which Jeff, I hope one day we do. Never skied before, and it would be cool to ski with you.
That'd be a blast, Elliott. That'd be fun.
And if I got on the skis for the very first time, let's say Jeff and I go skiing on a 3-day trip. And on day 1, minute 1, I put on the skis and I go down the hill 30 seconds and then boom, I fall. And then on day 2, minute 1, if I can go down the hill for 3 minutes and I fall, some people focus on the fall, but I lasted 3 minutes this time. And if you can shift your brain to signs of progress, then you win more. And to me, that started happening once I read that book.
What I'm hearing is so many things in here, but who are you comparing yourself to in your journey kind of matters, right? And are you comparing yourself to, the people who have been doing it for, say, 20, 25 years and have got to this other place, and then you look at your first attempt at, say, skiing or anything else, launching, and it is so far beyond where other people have got themselves to. It can be easy to have that conversation with ourselves that, like, man, why am I even bothering? I'm never going to get there, or I can't make that mental leap to get to that place where I'm doing, runs on a black diamond ski, on a ski run, right? Because I'm still on the bunny hill. I'm still dealing with this bunny hill right now. And are you comparing yourself to that person who's doing double black diamonds, or are you comparing yourself to the person who just went down the hill, right? And saying, okay, can I do this again better? And I think that there's a real value in not comparing yourself to these people who are much further away, and using them as inspiration versus, I should be doing that level of success.
Yeah, so I'll answer your question by not answering your question probably. But I don't compare myself to anybody, ever. What I do is I chase greatness. So Tom Brady, so I'll tell you another quick story about Tom Brady. When Tom Brady won his 3rd championship, Joe Montana at the time was known as the greatest quarterback of all time because he had one more championship than Tom Brady. So Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl number 3, and the next day, Tom Brady is in the gym working out and watching film. Literally the next day. And one of his teammates, a guy named Julian Edelman, sees him and says, bro, what are you doing? Like, you just won the Super Bowl yesterday. You're about to catch Montana. Because Montana was the most decorated quarterback of all time at that time. And Tom Brady said, screw Montana, I'm going after Jordan. So to me, that's how I think. Like, I don't compare myself to anybody. There's only been one Elliott Connie, and only Elliott Connie has been through the things Elliott Connie has been through. There's no point me comparing myself to anybody. But I tend to chase greatness. So if I were to go skiing, I want to go skiing with Jeff because he's great. He's been doing it for 1,000 years. And then one day, I want to catch him. And I accept and understand that ain't going to be today. It ain't going to be tomorrow. It ain't going to be the next day. But if I stay at this, one day Jeff and I will be able to ski side by side. But I would never, at no point would I compare myself to Jeff, but Jeff inspires me. I mean, Jeff inspires me as a business person, as a human. And I have a tendency to watch the greatest. And there are things that Jeff does that I think he's the greatest at doing. And I want to be around that. Like, I want to be around those people because it helps me learn. And I think people also, going back to mindset, they have to have enough ego strength to be around someone who's very successful and not be intimidated by that success. Because I know when I'm starting off, Jeff is going to do a launch and it's going to make big mountains of money and have a huge impact and people are going to love it. And I have to have the ego strength to be around that. I don't have to be envious, jealous, all that negative stuff. I see it as inspiration, because if Jeff is a living, breathing human, he put on his pants the same way I did, and he drank water today. He did all the things that humans do. If I can allow Jeff to inspire me as opposed to intimidate me, then one day I might be able to have an impact on people's lives and that sort of thing. And I think in order to be inspirable, you have to have ego strength. You have to have humility. You have to just accept and understand that. So comparing myself to Jeff there's just no point in it, because we don't have the same story. But to be inspired by people, Jeff and I have a mutual friend named Bill, and I often tell Bill, I need a rabbit to chase. And that's kind of my way of saying, like, I need somebody around to inspire me. And in different areas of life, like Jeff is one of those people. Bill has been one of those people in the psychotherapy world. But that's just how my brain works. I would never compare myself to anybody else, because I understand I'm the only me and you're the only you and they're the only them. But I am easily triggered towards inspiration. It's just the way my brain works. Like, I was at an award show, a Hollywood award show the other day, and they're giving these awards. Babyface got this award, and Whoopi Goldberg got this award. And I mean, all of these people who are massively successful in the entertainment space. And some of them, I'm friends with them. I'm fortunate enough I get to text message them and communicate with them. And the host of the award show, I was texting him after the show, like, I am incredibly inspired. I want to be on that stage one day. Now, I'm not an actor, I'm not a rapper, I'm not a singer, I'm not a dancer. But I want to influence people so much that you have to bring me on that stage and talk about mental health. And I'll see you when I get there. And if you know me, you know, do not bet against Elliott Connie. Like, I just wouldn't do it. People go broke betting against Elliott. So one day, I want to be up on that stage having influenced people in the same way that you guys have influenced people through your music and through your rap and through your dance and through your acting. I want to influence people through my mental health content and through my books and through what I talk about in terms of helping people be the best version of themselves. And that's just my personality. I sat there, man, and I was looking at, there were times I was in tears looking at what I was seeing, because I could see Babyface talking about he was winning this award, was in essence kind of a lifetime achievement award. And he talked about how when he first got started, all he wanted to do was write songs for celebrities. And he's like, I can't believe I'm up here now as a celebrity. And I was like, wow, you know, I'm 46 years old. Where am I going to be 25 years from now? And that's just what my brain does. I don't know how to explain it other than that's what my brain does. And I want other people to think those ways too.
There's so much richness here. I chase greatness.
I chase greatness.
Yeah. One of the things I do is I look for examples of someone who had more challenges than I do. You know, whatever, that for whatever reason, they're quadriplegic or something, you know, they're just incredibly challenged, and yet they had success. Because I think, like, the ability to take inspiration versus feel jealousy or feel envy when you see someone else succeeding, I think is like a core indicator of how far you're going to go.
Absolutely. I think that's 100% true.
Yeah. You know, John Wooden, I remember, I don't know if it was that book or he's a fascinating person. Like,
very.
Like at the first practice of the season. So
put on your socks.
How you put on, you know, like let's go over how you put on your socks. So the people showing up for the first practice are on the UCLA basketball team, which in this case, this might be the 10th year. They have 9 national championships in the prior 11 years. So by definition, the people who have made that team are some of the greatest college basketball players there are. They have spent their lives playing basketball, getting to that point. And his first practice, he teaches them how to put on their socks.
Jeff, I so love that. I so love that. I so love that. Because the only way to be great is to understand that fundamentals matter. And I can't even believe you said that, Jeff, because like John Wooden, you know, he really played a role. That book, I mean, there's been lots of books and lots of people in my life, but that book was significant. And when someone asked him, because not only are you the greatest players, but like Lou Alcindor, who later became known as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, was on the team. That's literally one of the greatest basketball players ever. And John Wooden taught him how to put on his socks every year, first day of practice. And when someone asked John Wooden why you do that, he said, because if you put your socks on wrong, you get blisters. And if you get blisters, you can't play. So that's where we're going to start. And one day I was talking to a friend of mine, a famous actor named Tiffany Haddish, and she goes, she I can't remember what we were talking about, but she was like, I got to go. I'm going to this acting class. And somebody asked her, you're going to an acting class? And she said, yeah, I'm an actor. And they said, yeah, but you're Tiffany Haddish. She's had 10 $100 million movies. Like, why? And she goes to acting classes with like unknown actors. And she said, you know, they ask me that when I'm in the acting class. Like, why are you here? You're Tiffany Haddish. And she says, I'm Tiffany Haddish because I'm here. And I think people forget foundation. They think it's something you need to move on from, but I think it's something you need to fall in love with.
Yeah, love it.
One of the things that
Chris, can I jump in? I just want to say on basketball for just a sec, because something you said earlier, I'd love to tease, and maybe this is more advanced rocket science level stuff, and we should stay in the fundamentals. But so, one of the earlier things you said is, what's the point of focusing on your problems? And what I want to tease out is sort of the difference between problems and weaknesses, because like I think about Elliott, we've never talked Michael versus LeBron, so I don't know where you stand on this.
MJ all day. MJ all day.
Me too. We're in alignment on that one. But like one of the most amazing things is you'll remember when Michael, he didn't play defense. He had this reputation that he didn't play defense.
Right.
He even had that All-Star game where Isaiah froze him out because he just shoots. He doesn't play defense.
Right.
And then Michael one summer, or I guess off season, he said, I'm going to go and become a defensive player. And then I don't know how many defensive All-Star, I'm sure he's defensive player of the year. Probably
he was once, defensive player of the year once.
Became one of the greatest defenders, period, full stop. And by like saying, okay, and then one time, he didn't have the most amazing outside shot. And then he said, I'm going to go learn how to shoot the ball. And, that's one of the reasons I admire him so much. And just full, I was a Pistons fan. So people don't remember how many years the Pistons stopped the Bulls.
A lot.
Yeah. And so, I sort of have this bias towards not being a Michael fan, but I'm a huge Michael fan because the way he would just make himself take a weakness and turn it into a strength.
So, I would love to tease this out because I think it's super important. I think we need to be able to turn our weaknesses into strengths. Like for me, I knew, so I told you, it started with wanting to be a therapist, then an author, then a lecturer, and then producing content online. And at each stage, I had to iterate. I had to literally become a different version of myself and master a new skill. And I can remember, like, I've never sold anything in my life. I never wrote any online copy, nothing. And I remember, like, first time making an offer, you're kind of like, here's the thing, I'm going to sell it to you. Do you think you might want it? Maybe it's okay if you don't. And, like, that was a weakness of mine. And it is now a very significant strength. Like a significant strength. When I say don't pay attention to your problems, here's what I mean. I am 5'10". That is how God built me.
Dude, I thought before I met you, I thought you were 6'5". Like just when we talked on Zoom, and I knew you were a catcher. At collegiate level, you played catcher. Yeah, I'm like, this dude's going to be like 6'5". And
no, I'm a little 5'10" dude, and I could be frustrated by that, which means I'm probably never going to play center for the Bulls as a 5'10" person. So that sometimes people focus on their flaws and then they don't pursue an aim. Like, so I can't play center for the Bulls, so screw it. I'm just not going to play basketball. But the truth is I can turn whatever skills I have and I can lean into those and I can turn weaknesses into strengths. So can I play center for the Chicago Bulls at 5'10"? Probably not. But can I learn how to dribble, which is a skill I don't have at the moment? And can I stay in the gym for hours and hours and hours and master the art of dribbling and thus still pursue my goal of becoming a Chicago Bull? And the answer is yes. And I think so often we focus on our flaws, and this is probably a harsh way to explain this, but we focus on our flaws and we use those as excuses to not pursue our dreams. And I think you can turn any weakness into a strength and then live with where it takes you. And I think that's a great example. Like Michael Jordan was not known as a prominent jump shooter. And as he aged and he was no longer flying through the air, he learned a jump shot called a fadeaway jump shot, which is almost an unstoppable shot. If you think about the physics of this, Michael Jordan jumps in the air backwards so that he's fading away from the defender and the target that he's shooting at. And he taught himself how to do that, and he extended his career because now he's not flying through the air dunking all the time, but he's now taking a fadeaway jump shot, which is an almost impossible shot to stop. But he did that by turning what was a weakness into a strength. And everybody can do that. Like, we all have weaknesses, and you can turn them all into strengths. Just don't focus on your flaws as if they're somehow barriers, because they're not. Like, they're just irrelevant. They're just doesn't matter.
To be good at something, you have to be willing to be bad at it for a while.
That is 100% true.
It's actually important to, like, I guess to me, it's when you go into something that you're not good at, it's a decision about who you're going to be when that failure shows up. You know, there is a moment that I think all of us go through when we're trying something new or trying to get to a new level of success, where there is a barrier or there is a challenge or there is something that pops up. And in that moment, you have a decision to make about who you're going to be in that moment, right? And some of the things that both of you have said throughout this conversation is you've cultivated these decisions about yourself. Like, I pursue greatness. Like, that sounds like a core principle for you,
100%.
Elliott. And that's sort of empowering you to move past that barrier, right? So I wanted to ask, like, how important is it, or how did you, one, come to that decision about yourself? Because I think that's a step that maybe some people are not necessarily taking for themselves, is making those core decisions. How did you come to that decision? And how did you know that that was the right decision to make for you?
Well, because to me, it's logical. And notice I didn't say I achieve greatness. I just said I pursue it. And because if I want to be doing something, and to me, it doesn't matter what it is, I want to look at the people who are amazing, historical, unbelievable examples of that thing. And then that's where I want to learn from. So to me, that's the most logical decision, is I'm just going to pursue greatness. And how I came to that in my life, like how I knew it was the right decision for me, like, I cannot describe how dark the early parts of my life was. So much so that I actually thought life was not worth living, and came very close to leaving this earth via suicide. Very close. Until I realized that greatness was possible. And in order for me to live a meaningful life, I have to figure out what my greatness was. And then all of a sudden I didn't feel bad anymore. Like, I was beating myself up for all the things that were wrong in my life. And I was feeling bad for all of the bad luck that I had had. And I was feeling terrible for all of the misgivings going on in my life. And I realized, focusing on all those misgivings and all those difficulties, I was missing my gifts. I didn't notice what my gifts were because I was so aware of what my problems were. And to me, the opportunity to pursue greatness freed me. It made me feel like, if I can survive this and then tell everyone how I survived it, that would be a great life to live. And that became my mission, was like, if I can get through this. And I mean, you got to think about, like, as a 20-year-old kid, there's no way I thought I'd be writing books. There's no way I thought I'd have, like, online course. I mean, online didn't exist at the time. I had no medium with which to reach people. But I did know, if I can survive this and then tell the world how I did it, that'd be a pretty cool life. I didn't know how much that job would pay. I didn't know what that would look like. The sole reason I majored in psychology, because I thought that was the way to get to that. And to me, that's just tied up in that. I think the pursuit of greatness is just as important as the pursuit of freedom. I think as human beings, when we feel restricted, if we oppress people, we take their freedoms away, they will fight to the death to regain their freedoms. And I think the pursuit of greatness is just as important. Like, if I tell you you cannot be great, people experience that as restrictive. So what if we just unlocked that and just said, no, you can absolutely be great. The thing you're trying to get good at, go find someone that's great at it and hang around with them and study them and focus on them and emulate them and all the things. Then you unlock a power inside of that human being that once unlocked is life-changing.
Last night I watched this just to stay on basketball for a little bit. I watched a super cool, I guess it was on Netflix, a documentary, and it's about various coaches. And it was about, the one I watched last night was about Doc Rivers. And, you know, super cool show, super cool. What an amazing human. And he said that at one point, there's a lot of great quotes, but one of the ones I wrote down was that pressure is a privilege. That, you know, he was coaching the Boston Celtics. They had all these championships. The expectations were, you know, getting to the playoffs wasn't good. Getting to the conference finals wasn't any good. Getting to the finals wasn't any good. You had to win. And what he stressed to his players was, it is a privilege to be in this situation where we have this pressure to perform. There's this expectation, and I know, like, for you and for me, like, I've got, you know, people, like one of my launches, I'm under pressure to perform because I've got this team, I've got this community, I've got these followings, and oh, by the way, I profess to be this guy that knows how to do launches, so, you know, it's a little bit of a pressure, and I certainly feel it at times, but that idea that pressure is a privilege. And I was thinking about some of the other things you talked about. I mean, that the idea of having this call to greatness. I mean, that's a privilege.
You know, can I respond to that real quick, Jeff?
Yeah, please.
I've never heard it put that way, but I absolutely love pressure, so much so that I sometimes cultivate it on purpose in my life. And I'll give you two examples. When I joined Launch Club and eventually joined the mastermind, I remember telling you, Jeff, I'm going to have the biggest launch echo that anyone's ever had in your community. And I say those things to give myself pressure because I want to live up to the promise I just made. Not too long ago, I met Jimmy Kimmel. And he knew a little bit about what I did, and we were just kind of chatting. And I told Jimmy Kimmel, I will be on your show one day. And he laughed and he said, how are you going to do that? I said, well, through my TV show, I'm going to become popular enough that you would like to have me on your show. And we talked a little bit and he said, what's your name? Tell me your name again. I said, Elliott Connie. He said, I have a feeling I'm going to need to remember this name. Now, it sounds arrogant when you say things to Jeff Walker like, I'm going to have the biggest launch echo you've ever had. And I don't mean to have any disrespect to anybody else in Jeff's community. And it sounds arrogant when you tell Jimmy Kimmel, I'm going to be on your show one day. But I don't actually care how it sounds. That's a promise to me. And when you put things out like that, then you have to live a life in accordance to the thing that you just said. So I purposely give myself pressure because it makes me better at whatever the thing was I'm pursuing. The thing is, though, you have to be able to handle pressure. And I know I can handle pressure. I know I can handle hard things. I know I can handle obstacles. I know I can handle failure because I promised myself I'm going to get back up. So on the way between where I am now and my pursuit of having the biggest launch echo that ever happened in Jeff's world, am I going to have bad launches? Of course I am. Am I going to send the emails that piss people off? Yep. Am I going to make social media content that nobody gives a shit about? Yep. But I'm going to keep going until eventually Jeff's going to go, man, that dude had the biggest launch. He did what he said he would do. Because I just know the biggest decision you could ever make is the decision not to quit. And once you decide not to quit, you will eventually achieve your aim. So one day I'm going to be sitting on Jimmy Kimmel's couch and he's going to remember the time I told him I'd be on Jimmy Kimmel's couch. And I think that's It's funny, Joe. I've never heard it put that way. Like pressure is a privilege, but I intentionally give myself pressure because it leads to greater performance. I don't think you can. I don't think you can perform well without some bit of pressure, some bit of like, I need to make this amount of money to feed my kids, or I need this job so I can do this thing. I don't think you can perform well. I think mediocrity becomes the default if there's no pressure. And I fear mediocrity more than I fear anything else on this planet. Mediocrity is my big bad boogeyman. I fear it. I will do anything to combat it. I do not want it. And at times I give myself pressure to make sure I don't accept it.
You know, that's interesting because I fear mediocrity. You know, I love studying champions, people that are just, you know, like Michael and LeBron and so many, Brady. And I think the common theme among the best of the best is it's not their desire to win. It's how much they despise losing. You know, those guys like Michael Jordan just hates losing with a passion. They all do. They hate, just kills them. It tears them up. You know, Roger Federer, just on and on. And you know, that you fear mediocrity.
I fear it.
Yeah.
Terrifies me.
That's cool.
To ground this in something like almost entrepreneurship too, because there's a lot of people that I think go into business because they want something out of it. Maybe they want less pressure in their life sometimes. Maybe they actually want to have a little bit more of an easier life in some way because they're not liking, say, the pressure they're getting from their current job or their boss or whatever it is. And they say, I'm going to go work for myself to kind of eliminate all that pressure. And so maybe you can speak to that a little bit more in sort of the entrepreneurship journey, because I think that people, when you step into that arena that is bigger and you're now the one who is responsible, that pressure is brought on by ourselves instead of other people.
Yeah, I mean, well, I want to say two things in response to that. I think entrepreneurship is a skill, just like anything else. However, most entrepreneurs don't realize it's a skill. So we have to treat it like I have to master this art of entrepreneurship. And that involves team management. That involves sales and revenue. That involves all kinds of things. But entrepreneurship is a skill just like basketball. One of the reasons why, like, I think my transition from athlete to entrepreneur was smoother because I understood hitting a baseball is a skill and I understood making a sale is a skill. And it's something that you have to work at and get better at. Like, it's a craft. I absolutely agree with you, Chris. I think a lot of people go in the entrepreneurial world because they, A, have big dreams of big revenue, and or B, they want some sort of life of freedom and less pressure. But I think entrepreneurship needs to be viewed as an act of love because it's way more pressure in the entrepreneur world. Like, for example, I have 8 employees, and I could almost get emotional saying this. 8 people have said, Elliott makes enough good decisions that I'm willing to tie the future of my family to the decisions he makes. And every single week, I've got to produce enough revenue that I can pay their salaries. I've got to, like, one of my core values is insurance should be accessible to all. So I cover the insurance costs of my employees, and that's not cheap. Like, that is tremendous pressure. I can't just mail it in. I can't just come out to LA and work on my TV show and forget about my team. My attendance to my team is 100% an act of love. And I love them because they believed in me enough that they have gifts and talents, and they've decided to use those gifts and talents in working for my business. And I think people need to think about entrepreneurship differently. And I think mindset is more important than tactics. Like, Jeff's probably heard me say that 1,000 times. And the reason I think it's more important than tactics, like, if you think about child rearing, I could tell you how to, like, change a diaper. That's a skill. You could learn that. That's a tactic. Here's how you change a diaper. But in order for you to wake up at 2 a.m. for the 52nd morning in a row to change a diaper, you got to love that kid. You got to love that kid a lot. And the entrepreneurial journey requires you to do things that are so hard along the way. You've got to love that thing. And you got to love those people that are in collaboration with you in building that thing. So the tactic of entrepreneurship, like I can teach you how to write an email, but I can't teach you how to rewrite it 50 times until you finally hit send at 4 a.m. Like that's the hard bit. And I think that the way you get there is by understanding the mindset of entrepreneurship is actually an act of love. Like when I hang out with the biggest, most successful people, like Jeff is an example of this. I mentioned Tiffany Haddish earlier. She's an example of this. Tiffany Haddish told me one time that she doesn't like it when people call her an actor and comedian. She said, I understand that that's like my job. So when I go to interviews, they introduce me as like, actor, comedian Tiffany Haddish. She said, what I actually view myself as, that I don't say publicly, is an administrator of joy. And I was like, whoa, tell me about that. And she said, I grew up in foster care, really negative and down and in dark places. And I just want everybody to have joy. And I think God gave me the ability to create laughter and joy. So that's how I view myself. So instead of viewing yourself as an entrepreneur, just trying to make a sale, if you viewed yourself through the act, like this is an act of love. I'm doing this because I love a particular audience. So I want to create something that would make the people in that audience have better, more wonderful, more happier lives. And the people on my team and on my staff, like, I just want people to really understand what I'm saying. I could teach you how to be a parent, but I can't teach you how to be a parent at 2 a.m. on the 52nd night waking up. That comes from a different place. And I've had to do things in my entrepreneurial journey that would not have been capable without love for the entrepreneurial journey. And I think people have to love the whole thing. You got to love like the whole entire thing. I teach people all the time, the greatest thing that you can have in your life is appreciation, and you got to be appreciative for it all. And there are times like when your child is now 22, you're going to miss those nights of waking up and holding them in a weird, like, because you romanticize them in your brain. At the time you didn't miss them, but like when they're 20, you look at them like, I miss when I was nursing them and I was the hero in their life and I was all that mattered. Imagine if you could develop the skill to appreciate it in real time. Like if you could develop the skill to appreciate it now, and that comes from your mindset of accepting this is just part of the journey. The entrepreneurial journey is hard, but that's what makes it beautiful. That's what makes it amazing. And you cannot do it without understanding it's an act of love.
I this past just a couple months ago, one of my last ski days, and it was a ski day where there's a bunch of families up there, and I walked through the locker room to go to the bathrooms, and there was this family there with like 3 kids trying to get their kids ready to go out skiing. And so they're bundling them up and they're putting on their mittens and they're putting on their ski boots. And it's like, I've been there. It's like a 90-minute process to get all the boots on, to get all the coats on, to get the snow pants on, to get the mittens on. And then one of the kids has to go pee. So they have to take off, you got to take off all the clothes and take them into the bathroom, and they come back out. And then like the other kids lost their hat, and it's like a half a day just getting kids in and out of their clothes for skiing. And I'm looking at those parents and I'm like thinking, oh, what I would give to have another one of those mornings. My kids are all grown, and what I would give to have one of those frustrating mornings, bundling up my kids to take them out in the slopes. That perspective of
I mean, I think, but Jeff, I think that's life. Like having the ability to be like, man, I would kill to have one of those things again. Like that is life, And I've had in the past couple of years, as I move around in LA more, I meet and work with a lot of celebrities, and they find out what's going on in my life, like working on a TV show and book deals and all the stuff. And they all tell me the same exact thing, Jeff. They all tell me, enjoy the rise, because the rise is much more enjoyable and satisfying than being at the top. And I've had people like at the tippity top tell me that. And to me, that's what you're saying. Like the process of raising kids isn't just like playing catch in the backyard and having a good old time. Part of it is that moment where it's like, I've got to put ski gear on all these kids. I got to take it off so we can go to the bathroom. I got to put it back on. But that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. And I think too many entrepreneurs like romanticize it in their head. And the reason you can feel that way, Jeff, about kids is because of yours. Like, I don't think you'd want to just have random kids that you're getting dressed into. Like, it's the love you have for those specific kids. So it's not really putting skis clothes on them and taking off. It's caring for them. And in this particular moment, caring looks like putting ski clothes on them and then taking it off and those sorts of things. But I don't think people understand that. Like, I've seen a lot of people ask Jeff a lot of questions. I've seen a lot of people ask you lots of questions. And every single time, the majority of those questions are tactic driven. And I always want to say, like, don't ask Jeff that question. You need to ask Jeff, how did you care enough about this business that you were willing to stay committed? Because Jeff is now in like his 1,000th year of doing, like, whatever. Jeff talks about the first time we released PLF, it was in CD form. If Jeff handed me a CD right now that said play this and you get $1 million, yeah. If Jeff handed me a CD right now, told me to play it and you get $1,000, I have no idea how I would play that CD. But the question people need to ask Jeff is like, how did you fall in love with what you do? Because if I can fall in love with what I do, then success becomes significantly more likely. And if you're around Jeff, like, it's very clear he loves what he does and he loves who he does it for. And that is a mindset thing, because I guarantee you, if I told Jeff, push this button and you can have one more day of your kids being little and requiring your care, I bet you Jeff would push that button and would enjoy that one more day. But if I told Jeff, push this button and you're just going to randomly care for some random kids on a ski slope somewhere, he ain't going to want to do that. He's not going to want to do that, because it's about what's in his heart. It's about what's in our hearts. It's about love and care. It's not just about being on the ski slope with kids. It's about those very specific kids and understanding that taking care of them is exactly that. It's an act of care.
I love that, entrepreneurship is an act of love. I wrote down, I'm taking all kinds of notes. I'm on my third page of notes here, Elliott. This is awesome. It's awesome. And I wrote down, it's also an act of service. And I started to think about those words, love and service, and the Venn diagram of those two things. There's a lot of overlap between those.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Absolutely true. Like, you can't be of service without the emotion of love. Because again, the act of service requires me to wake up at 2 a.m. and do certain things. And I just can't do it. Like, service is such, I went to a Gordon Ramsay restaurant once, and he was not there, but his executive chef was there. And I am a huge fan of Gordon Ramsay. Like, he's a bit of a loon, but super entertained by him. And I remember going to this restaurant and ordering lobster ravioli. And I expected a bowl of raviolis, but they brought me a plate with one large ravioli on it. And I took a bite of it, and it was the single most delicious thing I'd ever eaten. And I turned, and the executive chef is standing right next to me. And he said, "Are you enjoying this?" I think they knew I was American, so they were just I was in England at the time, so they were just enamored, like, how does this American find our food? And I was like, yeah, this is absolutely delicious. And I later was like, why does he care? Well, because he thinks of food the way Jeff Walker thinks of skiing. He thinks, to him, it's an act of service. So thus he wants to know, am I doing a good job? And I think that is the core of being successful in anything, is you've got to love it enough that it becomes an act of service. And you have to serve those people. Like, in our world, people focus on, like, email lists, but every single email represents a human being. And every single human being represents a life, represents people that they love and care about. And you need to be in service to them, 100%.
what I'm hearing so much is the importance of our language in describing ourselves and our acts and what we do. Because business could just as easily be saying, well, it's about making money, or it's about making sales, or finding something. But what you're saying is, no, it's about finding places in which to serve, finding people in which to love, and how much that would change the way I would show up for that business and
Right.
those people, right? When that is the shift. And so the importance of language and how we describe our circumstance and what we're doing. I'd love to hear how you think about that. And or do you agonize over the language of how you describe what you're about, what you're doing, and what you're going to do in your life?
No, I don't agonize about it. I'm very intentional about it because I think language is everything. And the thing about your brain is your brain doesn't know whether you're kidding or being serious. So if you say something about yourself like, oh, I suck at this, your brain doesn't know. So I just don't say those things ever. Language really matters to me. Like I talked about kind of the dark place of my childhood. I remember every single insulting word my father said to me. I don't remember all the punches. Like, words really matter. So I'm just really careful with how Elliott Connie talks about and to Elliott Connie. And I don't agonize about it. I just don't do it. Like I don't ever want to use words that make other people feel bad either. Like, language is absolutely everything. And it's an art that I've had to master as a consequence of being a psychotherapist, is understanding, like, I have to talk to people in such a way that evokes the greatness within them. And I think that also helps me as an online marketer, is because I have to be really careful with my language and I have to evoke a certain emotion from the people around me. And I think mastering language it's been the greatest secondary gift of my life. Like, I didn't go into psychotherapy knowing that that would be the case. But that is now the case in my life, and I'm very, very proud of that skill. Probably more than any other skill I have. I'm proud of that one.
Hey, Launch family, Chris coming at you. We'll get back to wrap up our conversation with Elliott in just a second, but first I wanted to let you know we talked to Elliott for another 20 minutes, and in that he shared some amazing insights. Specifically, we talk about why you should love imposter syndrome, how to find champions and cheerleaders in your life, and how authenticity can be the difference maker in resonating with your audience. In order to access this extra time with Elliott, go to daretolaunchshow.com/53, plug in your email, and you'll get access to our bonus vault. This is where we put all the extra bonuses from the past and future episodes of Dare to Launch. That website again is daretolaunchshow.com/53. Now back to the show.
So, Elliot, can we talk about your Achilles heel?
Yes, whatever that might be. Yes.
Oh, it's my daughter.
Oh my gosh. Oh, this woman. This woman. Yes, we can talk about Joan.
Oh, how did that last year? So you have an ongoing competition. You might want to share that with everyone listening.
So I have this ongoing competition. So okay, I'll give you a quick catch up. I'm freakishly competitive, and I find out that Joan is really good. Joan, Jeff's daughter, she's really good at trivia. And the movie that she was really good at that I heard about was Dumb and Dumber, which is a movie I know quite well. So it triggers my competitiveness, and I say, let's have a trivia competition about Dumb and Dumber. And we've now done this, I believe, 6 times. I've won about different movies and TV series. I've won once, and she has dump trucked me 5 times. I have now realized this woman is the GOAT, but I can't stop doing it. So so we're gonna get together later this year in October. We're watching seasons 3 through 6 of The Sopranos, and I'm gonna get this woman. Like, I cannot. She notices, like, when she watches a movie, she'll be like, in minute 13, what color shoes was the person who was to the right of the... I mean, she notices everything. And it is a challenging thing, but I'm going to get it.
So you can see these are different challenges. These are different level of challenges. I guess that we
I
get
told
to
you.
experience now, right?
I told you. I put myself in situations where challenges are like I have to rise to greatness, and I pursue greatness. And I have never known anyone who watches a movie the way that Jeff's daughter watches a movie. And
Pressure is a privilege. I mean,
Pressure is a privilege.
that last time she was feeling pressured about the first 2 seasons of Sopranos, but
the thing that's horrible about her, like if I ask you a question, Jeff, like if you watched a movie last night, let's say you watched Star Wars, and I said, Jeff, I got a question about Star Wars. What color is prominent on R2-D2, right? Here's what makes Joan so difficult. So in those moments, a normal human being thinks, let me think. Is it blue? Yeah, it's blue. You got it right. Joan goes like this. You say, hey, Joan, what color is prominent on R2-D2? Joan goes, blue. Like, just like that. like she spends no time thinking about it. And you realize, like, this person, she's not even thinking. It's just coming out of her. Like, this is not easy.
Wow. Should we do a 2-minute taco break?
sure.
Yes, I read a thing about a taco break. You're going to fire a question at me about tacos.
Yes, we're going to throw out some, actually, this is for everybody. So both Jeff and you, I got some fun taco questions. We're going to start with some basic and easy. We're going to warm them up a little bit, as you do with spiciness in a taco, all right? So let's start off with something easy. How about soft shell or hard shell?
Soft shell.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We have yet to find anybody who's a hard shell person.
There's
Or
the occasional time, 1 out of 100 times I eat tacos, I actually will choose hard shell just because for whatever reason in the day I want crunchy. But I'm a soft shell guy all day.
I like the ones where they mix them. They got soft and hard. That crunchiness is nice.
Yeah.
All right. How do you feel about guacamole versus salsa?
I want both.
Both. And how about you, Jeff?
Yeah, well, longtime listeners know I have an allergy to avocado, so I stay away from the guac. Yeah, no, it's guac and me are not a good combo.
Well, would you rather eat a taco at the next Super Bowl or the next NBA Finals?
Ooh,
I mean, you have to pick one.
Super Bowl.
NBA Finals. Yeah, I've been to a couple Super Bowls. I've never been to a Finals.
I've never been to either, but there's something more iconic about a Super Bowl, so I'd rather go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Super Bowl's top of my list too. If tacos gave you a superpower, what superpower would it give you?
Gosh, if tacos, well, I think the superpower I'd want more than any other superpower would be, I would love invisibility. So if taco could give me a superpower, I want it to make me invisible.
Interesting.
You know, I'm going to go in a little different direction with the answer to this because I just there's this YouTube show called Hot Ones. Elliot, have you ever seen that?
I know Hot Ones, yes.
Okay, so we recently, as a family, we did the Hot Ones challenge. So you can actually buy the box of the 10 hot sauces. And so as a family, me, my wife, my 2 kids, they're sweethearts, the 6 of us did the Hot Ones challenge all the way through. And I didn't want to do it. I mean, I like spicy stuff, but I did not want to do it because it looks just too painful.
It's
but
hot.
Because of all the peer pressure, I'm going to do it. And we did it. And I made it. In fact, we all made it through all 10. And I know the superpower it gave me is I do not fear spice. It's not like it's not like I'm invincible to it, but I know I can handle it. There's no way I could go into a Thai restaurant and get Thai spicy, give me a 10 Thai spicy, and I know I can deal. So it gave me a certain level of fearlessness with regards to spice.
Man, that California Reaper is no joke.
Dude, it was so much fun. The six of us just laughed so hard, and we were playing some kind of game. I forget what it was, but like sort of a trivia-ish game, and so we had to think while we were doing it. We were just laughing so hard, and it was an emotional. You could just see like it was truly everyone was going through a whole gamut of emotions, and yeah, it was a blast.
No,
You learn how people deal with struggle when you put them through a hot sauce challenge. Honestly, you learn about people.
but that is such a wonderful metaphor for life, you know, like I know I can do hard things.
Right?
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Everybody should know that.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to ask one more because I got a bunch of good ones here. But if you could have a taco party with any historical figure, who would you invite?
Mandela. Not even a question. Mandela. If I could have a taco party with one human being that has ever walked this planet, it'd be Mandela.
That's a good one.
That is a good one.
That's a really good one. I don't know. George Washington.
There you go. All right.
Cool.
George, I read a biography of him recently that like he used to, for me, he was not even like a real person. He was just sort of this, you know, it's hard to vision him as a real person, but he was a real person and he was a great one.
I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that goes with our 2-minute taco break. Awesome. We're nearing the end here. So why don't we go into some final thoughts on just mindset, or if there's any final advice for people who are in it right now that you'd like to leave them with?
I think I've several actually, but I'll try to whittle it down. I hope people realize the most successful business strategy you can have is love, and understanding that your business needs to come from a place of love. I literally don't think I know a single successful person who doesn't have love for their audience, their service, their product, their whatever, as a core value and a core thing within that particular business. So try to focus on understanding how important love is. The other thing I would say is understand how important mindset is. Like, if you want to become Jeff Walker or Michael Jordan or whatever, you can't follow their steps because they took their steps in a different time, in a different place, and as a different person. But you can follow their mindset. So you can watch them and understand, how did you develop the discipline, the routine, the mentality, the focus? Those things are emulatable and will lead you to a similar place. If I literally told Jeff to sit down, like, Jeff, I want to have a large online business. Can you sit down and tell me the tactics you use to build yours? I could take that and apply it in my business, and I would surely fail because Jeff came up in a different time. So like, Jeff had to know, how do I turn my ideas into a CD? That information won't help me, but it will help me understand. So Jeff had the mentality, how do I get my ideas out into the world? And in early 2000s, the vehicle was CDs. But in 2023, the vehicle is AI. The vehicle is like, it's different now. So focus on the mindset of the people who have greatness. Don't focus on the tactics or steps, and you're much more likely to achieve success. So I think those are probably, and the third thing I would say also is, when you look in a mirror, find reasons to believe in you. Understand you are undefeated. Understand you are amazing. Understand you are gifted, and lean into those gifts. And I don't just mean that for business. I just mean that for life. And when you do those things, life is significantly more joyous and livable. So those are probably the three things I would love people to get from hanging around me.
Elliott, this has been, here we go. Pages of notes here. Pages of notes. This is, I love talking about this. And I love those three, and, you know, the mindset, and really, and choosing the thoughts that you're going to feed, versus, you know, we all have all kinds of thoughts running through our heads, and some of them are going to take us towards greatness, and some of us are going to take them away, and really picking those thoughts and picking the practices that put you in the place to have those thoughts. Right. So critical. I wrote down earlier on in this conversation, I wrote down the number 252. because there's the stock market. When I started out, I published about the stock market. And Elliot, you know my story. I mean, I started from desperation, I just was desperate to make some money to try to help support the family.
Pressure is a privilege.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the stock market's open 252 days per year. And it's not open on the weekends and holidays. So it's open 252 days a year. And 252 days, I would send out an email to try to get people to buy my service, which is a newsletter that told them what was going to happen in the stock market. And for the first couple of years, almost every single day, not a single person would buy. But every now and then, one would. And I would study the email that I had sent out. And then, why did someone buy from that email? And so, year after, I did that for 8 years, 252 times a year. And, people, sometimes they look at me and they think I'm really good at marketing, or I'm some marketing guru or expert or whatever. And I've helped a lot of people. I've taught a lot of people, but it's because I send an email 252 times per year. And it's just those reps.
Yeah.
Those reps.
I love that, Jeff. And I said earlier, I think people often ask Jeff Walker the wrong question. So I'm just going to tell people the question. If you ever find yourself at an event and Jeff Walker's strolling down the hallway, he's a super approachable guy, love to chat with you. The question I want you to ask him is, how did you send 252 emails when you so infrequently got positive feedback? Because the answer to that question will unlock your ability to get through that too. And I just don't know any successful people that haven't done that. Like Tiffany Haddish, before she got her first role, she auditioned 279 times. And I asked her, how did you possibly hear no 278 times? And her answer is remarkable. Ask Jeff, how did you send an email 252 times a year and when no one was buying? The beauty and magic of Jeff is that he kept sending them. That's the magic. The tactic, while relevant, isn't as important as that, because Jeff's resilience and determination is how he became the influential person that he is today. Because if Jeff sent 200 emails, no one would call Jeff a quitter. They'd be like, man, 200 is a lot of emails. But Jeff was willing to send as many emails as it took. And now he's built this amazing platform and business. If you see Jeff walking down the hallway, that's the question to ask him, because that's usable information. Not how did you construct your emails, because you'd have to construct your emails differently. The usable information is about mindset. How did you do that 252 times without a stimuli of response that would keep you going? That's what makes Jeff different. And if you understand that, then that's what will make you different too.
Well, Elliott, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find more from you?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. You guys know, like, the two of you are very special to me. Jeff, for the reasons we talked about earlier. And Jeff, I don't know if you know, Chris is the person who signed me in the Launch Club all those years ago.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you guys so much for inviting me and having me here. If you guys want to know more about me, if people listening want to know about me, you can go to my website, which is elliottconnie.com, but you got to spell my name right, 2 L's and 2 T's, elliottconnie.com. Or you can find me on social media at Elliott Speaks on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you go to at Elliott Speaks on either of those platforms, you'll find my stuff. And I would love for you guys to follow me. I don't just make content for psychotherapists anymore. I make content that I hope will touch everybody and help them become the best version of themselves. We got cool stuff that we publish. I publish on social media about 20 times a day across all platforms. So there's loads of stuff there that will hopefully just put a smile on your face and help you hug the people in your life a little bit tighter and love everybody a little bit more.
Thanks, Elliott.
Thank you. Well, Launch family, that's all for today. We hope this conversation has encouraged you and makes you dare to launch. On the next episode of Dare to Launch.
So can you ask ChatGPT to create an onboarding process for ChatGPT?
Yes. So, and one of the things I will actually do is I'll say, okay, this is what I want you to do, but I'm not sure how to go about doing this. So you need to ask me the questions. And sure enough, it'll come up with the questions. And so I'll answer the questions and you know, and I'll put in a bit of humor and say, okay, I've given you all this stuff. Now you better make this good. And, you know, up it comes. So
it feels a little passive aggressive. Be humorous, and then it's humorous, and you're like, well, listen, you're an AI, so I know.
But what I've found is by testing it, that gets me the more personable responses. It gets me the conversational tone. So I try just pure factual, you know, give me 10 of these, write this out, this is what I want. I tried the super polite, you know, I tried the bullet point form, and then I tried the cheeky, and I find cheeky works best every time.